Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is D-Dub. Today we are looking at the PS5 unveiling event. And this isn't really going to be a reaction. This is kind of like just my recap and my thoughts on the thing. And I figured we would kind of scroll through a little bit here. Basically, just starting out, they had this cool graphic here. And I kind of want to just eat this part right here. Like, I liked what they did for the beginning. They showed the X, circle, well, cross. They showed triangle, circle, cross, and square. It's like a nostalgia trip. Like, hey, you guys know PlayStation. Like, here's our legacy. They start off with that. And even though it's just kind of a quick throw, I mean, you see like Cloud there. You see all these great franchise and stuff. Some of them, it was just real quick, so it didn't really allude to anything. But I kind of got the feeling that, first impressions, with that being like one of the first things we saw. I mean, I was hoping that there was going to be some, lost franchises that they kind of came back to, that they kind of revived, and that wasn't the case. But hey, that was just kind of the way that it started off. Not a big deal. I mean, we see different stuff. You saw like Final Fantasy VII, some like Death Stranding, Last of Us. So they're building it up, but they don't really, aside from that initial zoom and then some of the screenshots going through the tunnel there, they don't really show any PS1 games. So I mean, it's all PlayStation 4, and then kind of strange that they go straight into this GTA. It's the PS5 event. It's like, okay, kind of just a weird way to kick it off for PS4, but it is GTA 5, Grand Theft Auto 5 for PS5. So kind of makes sense that they're just going to keep this game going forever. They recently said that GTA 6 was nowhere near close, and this game, I mean, really, they could just keep expanding on it. And I guess as long as they do that, that's fine. I guess I'd be cooler with just a new game. This game has sold over 100 million at this point, so it makes sense. That's kind of just an expansion. So they're going to continue to update that game and make money here. I mean, they talk about some of the games, and in terms of like presentation, here we are during this pandemic, so this isn't E3. I thought they did a pretty good job with putting this whole presentation together. I do think they kind of took a page out of Nintendo's book in terms of just kind of showing the games and keeping the hubbub in between. Like, what really seems to drag these kinds of presentations down, I guess if Nintendo did it, it would probably be more interesting. Like, we see stuff like that at like the Nintendo Treehouse, where you have multiple people talking to each other at once. You had like the Nindies presentation where you have like two co-hosts talking to each other, and they just do the little dibble-dabble chatting in between some of the games. But for like, say like the Inside Xbox, there's too much of the, oh yes, Crackdown 3. Oh, what did you guys are checking out the trailer live, and then it goes kind of like CNN type room where there's multiple people talking about it, and it just bogs it down quite a bit. So in terms of that, there wasn't much here. These people are all working, probably mostly from home, remote. Things are just starting to kind of get back to normal a little bit, but I'm sure a lot of this stuff was recorded beforehand, that they've probably been putting this thing together for the past 2 months since E3 got canceled. I mean, it's been 2.5 months since it's been canceled, so they've had some time to put this together. In terms of, like I said, the presentation, I think that they did a pretty good job here. Got this Spider-Man trailer. I'm not too big on Spider-Man, although this game does look good, and it'll be awesome to see like what this storyline entails. I mean, it's Miles Morales. I don't really even know who that is or what it relates to the game, but I guess it more so seems kind of like a 0.5. Like, I'm guessing when they put this game out last year for PS4, that it was being, dev kitted on the PS5, trying to figure out the SSDs and all the load times and stuff like that. So that, this game kind of seems like it's going to be, it's a new game, but essentially kind of like an expansion pass, I guess, maybe a second story. I doubt that the whole world is going to be fleshed out and that it's a whole new universe. I guess to me, it seems more like a B story side plot to an already existing universe, which of course it's Spider-Man, so you would think that it would always be like that, but every game, they kind of remake the whole world, and I kind of think it's just going to play off what the PS4 already built. But I mean, we got Gran Turismo, really cool. This presentation started out with a bang. This, of course, looks great from in the seat. I mean, sure, some of this stuff could probably be done on a PS4, and some people are talking about the, PS5 kind of being rushed, and, maybe it could have waited another year. I mean, the games that we're seeing now on the PS4 Pro, Xbox One X, it probably could have gone another year or two, but I guess this is how technology, always manages to push forward. And I really can't believe that I've been alive for this whole time to see it go from PlayStation 1 to all the way where we are now. But we got Gran Turismo, but we got Gran Turismo 7, campaign mode. That's pretty cool. A new Jak and Daxter. I really have only played, I want to say it was the first one, maybe the second one. And, good stuff. Fortunately for this franchise, it's not really, it's sat dormant for a little bit, but even there was they did a movie on it. I mean, I think there was a game on the Vita. This franchise isn't one that's been dead for too long, and it really hasn't been dead. It's just been dormant for a few years, but I gotta say that the game looks great. Really, the only thing I'm noticing so far, at least for a game like this, is, stuff looks crisper, more in the background. For this being, I guess, completely, they call it in-game, gameplay. It's not all cinematic trailers. It's kind of weird. I think this game showed it kind of the best, I guess, the blending from the cinematic to actual gameplay. It doesn't, right here looks cinematic, but it doesn't seem like it takes much for it to just kind of go straight into gameplay. So in terms of that aspect, hopefully less games have the cinematic cutscene with a fade to black back into gameplay. I think that's going to be one of the biggest things. And the biggest thing that I saw from this trailer is just the franticness of the gunfiring and these rifts opening and the explosions and the particle effects. Really, for this, the Jak and Daxter, the explosions are what I thought looked really good. And I don't think that it's nothing that couldn't be done on a PS4. And a lot of people were complaining this whole time, which gamers are spoiled, and in my opinion, they really don't deserve shit, because everyone was just complaining the whole time, show the box, show the box. So it goes to show that, you had 80% of people after 15 minutes going, just show the damn thing already. I've bounced back from Spawn Wave to RGT85 to Mad Little Pixel to Dreamcast Guy to Beat 'em Ups Wood. I switched around from a bunch of different streams just to see how the chats were. And the chats for these things are always ridiculous. But you had Beat 'em Ups and Spawn Wave with I think at a max of 21,000 viewers watching. And you just had so much toxic, people are just get on with it. Not every game is for everybody, but really this goes to show, at least from what I saw, that people don't care about the games. They care about the system. They want to see the system. And yeah, this was the reveal event, but in the end, I mean, the console is going to sit on the side of you. You're not looking at that. You want to see what the games are. So they did a pretty damn good job of showing off the games, I thought. And even though I don't own a PS4 and I've honestly never even touched a PS4, I gotta say, I started off going into this with pretty much zero expectation. This wasn't like a Nintendo Direct in the middle of a console where it's oh man, it's E3, they're gonna show all the newest and greatest. To me, it's we know this system's coming out. It's the same for Xbox. System launches weren't as grandiose as they are now. So we're kind of in this weird period here where, we essentially are in the future. Here's the reveal for this. How far are these games going to go? Are they going to be showing us games that just don't get a date and they span out 3 years in time? Or are these truly just going to be the launch games that they already have been working on? They know are coming out within a year. Some of them said 2020. Some of them basically seemed like launch date with the system. Only a few. It wasn't as many as I would have thought. I thought there would have been more emphasis on the launch windows for when these come out, but obviously, all these kinds of things changed with everybody working from home, the pandemic, all that stuff. So I totally get that. And real quick, I thought this demo here, this game, which published by Square, so it's not made by Square, but of course Square gets all the credit. I thought from those jumping scenes that this most looked like the PS5 tech demo that we saw those 3-4 weeks back. Yeah, this right here, the fluidness and the zooming as she jumped and bounced, it really reminded me of that tech demo. And basically the most that I got to say about this entire reveal is just how good the atmospheres and the worlds actually look. But it's also hard to tell exactly like what's cinematic and what's gameplay. Like, I mean, it's starting to seem like I already said that we're getting to this point, at least for PS5, maybe not so much for Xbox. Maybe they'll take it on too, depending on what kind of tech they're using and how they utilize all this stuff, because that's what it comes down to. I mean, this is just tools to, create upon. But I think we're getting to this point where the cinematic and the gameplay are going to pretty much blend seamlessly, because, they were talking about Spider-Man loading in a tenth of a second, these massive worlds. So it almost seems like there's going to be no load time. It's just going to be so visceral. You're not going to have like a loading screen or a fade to black before cutting back to gameplay here. So yeah, I think we're on the cusp of the cutscenes and the gameplay being very undiscernible, which is good for immersion and gameplay. I mean, you're not going to have that, oh, I know the cutscene's coming up. You kind of set down the controller, say you're playing like something like Death Stranding. I guess you're a cat in this game, a story game. A lot of these, all right, so let's go back. The whole presentation opens up, you got the hints to the past, showing some PS1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here's some of the stuff. We get the Grand Theft Auto. Okay, weird. PlayStation 4. Oh, okay, it's on the PlayStation 5. Now here's some newer stuff. Like I said, we saw Gran Turismo. We see Ratchet and Clank. And then the presentation, it kind of starts to just proceed. It didn't hold my attention. I mean, it held my attention well, obviously, because I'm curious. I want to see what is going on with all these new games. But as the next game got shown, they broke it up a little bit here by going back to this build up here where, I mean, they kept showing the shapes. They kept showing the circles and the squares and the triangles. This thing was like an hour and 20 minutes long. There had to have been 50 games shown. I thought it was cool the way that they kept showing these like particle effects. If you look closely, all these little molecules are the X's, O's, circles, and squares. So I love the way that they did that. And then I like the way that they went into this. They show off the controller, haptic feedback. We knew that. I think the built-in microphone on the controller, that's great. And I hope that kind of just becomes a standard. What's the point, having a little thing come off? I mean, microphones are good enough now that you could build a decent one into it. And I'm hoping, later on they showed all the accessories that they have. So when it comes to like the 3D audio, I'm wondering, you're really going to need Sony's headset to kind of experience that fully. Like, I'm really looking forward to seeing more on that in the controller, because when they eventually reveal the system at the end, they of course show the system, they show the controller, they show the headset, USB-C. It looks like there's a USB-C on the console itself. But so anyways, we'll be getting to that. So we had another word here, blah, blah, blah. I wish they would bring like a Jet Moto back, but it's like they keep showing, all these games it's getting hard to, see all these trailers and know exactly what the hell is going on. Sure, we're going to see more about the game, but it just seems the way that they present these games, it's just gaming has taken so much from the cinematic world, and it's, I don't know, personally, I think it's starting to get old. I wish that they would show a little bit of what the gameplay is going to be. Like right there, you get kind of a quick second, but there's, all this stuff going on. The next thing you know, I mean, it's kind of going back to cinematic and, right there. So we have like 30, 40, 50 seconds of like cinematic in-game motion camera with, these slight little gameplay clips, but it's really hard to tell exactly what the hell is going on. And not really so much for this game. This one, I think it actually looks pretty interesting. I was actually happy to see, a cutesy, like, kid-friendly, nothing crazy, nothing bloody, nothing gory, just a really good-looking 3D platformer. That's what I'm talking about. I was hoping for like a water racing game, like a Jet Moto. I was hoping for that to come back. I wanted to see like a Twisted Metal. I wanted to see like a Nightmare Creatures. Tomb Raider has kind of been run and done kind of into the ground. I don't know. I just kind of think that there's something missing about the hype for this. Now, sure, I'll probably get the system at some point. I feel like they could have done less of showing certain types of games, because I guess after this, they kind of just did this like barrage where, like I said, I wasn't not paying attention, but I kind of lost interest and focus. And there was really no point in the presentation where I really went like, whoa, and like, got like the shiver down my spine, or like felt like the arm, the hair like stand up on my neck, so to speak. I'm not like a little kid anymore, so a lot of this stuff isn't really as exciting as a lot of YouTubers. Plenty of them do like the fake thing. I don't really fake things. If I'm actually excited, I'm actually excited. If I'm legitimately blown the F away, you'll be able to tell. But like, you had this game here where it's like, is this like a Rocket League? You got like the luchador mask, and then you start seeing the people, you start seeing the style, and you're like, okay, it's like a Overwatch meets Fortnite meets Rocket League. And it's like, sure, it looks cool, sure, it looks fun, but just the way it's presented, it's all the same type of colors, the way the characters look, the Fortnite thing. I hate what Fortnite has kind of done to these cartoony characters, where they all have to look like, they all have to have this same, like, it's not necessarily like cyberpunk, but like, with the tights and with the leather jacket and with the dude, and he's got like the pompadour, whatever, the like the comb back thing, and they all have like they don't move like normal humans. They all have these like dance emojis kind of like built into their step, the way that they flare their arms. It's almost like they're like a old school, like that MTV show where they used to have like the dance crews do like the like dance off contests. So it's kind of like that, but it doesn't have like a 90s like street breakdancing vibe. It's all like this Fortnite ripoff thing, kind of meets, like I said, like kind of like Overwatch meets Fortnite, that character style, and I'm just not a fan of it. But anyways, that's really the end of that rant. I really hope that whole thing can just shift and die off or turn into something else. If you want to give me dance emojis and like these street witty, street hip hop lifestyle thing, like melded together, give me some like 90s hip hop. Give me like a flat brim hat dude with, the boombox. Give me some 90s, Vans Chuck Taylor, like / Adidas, Nike, Run DMC leather coat. Make it cool. But anyways, like I said, I could probably just keep ranting on about that. But as the games kind of just went on, I was like, okay. This right here, I don't really think it looks anything too exceptional that like the PS4 couldn't do. I honestly think this game could run pretty much exactly the same on a PS4 as it does PS5. One also thing that I gotta say is that, some people said, whoa, this looks so good, oh my god. And then there was other people that were kind of like, not as big of a jump as I thought. And going into this, I was just expectations low. We're already at a pretty good, I mean, have you seen some of the games that have come out? We're kind of plateauing here, and I don't know how much better games can honestly get. And I know that's been kind of the saying since the PS1 going to the PS2, let's say, or even before the Dreamcast dropped. I mean, we're still talking about the 1990s, like in 1998, where it was like, man, the PS1's starting to come to the end, or not really to the end, but as the games progress, even for the same system, you're like, wow, this one tops the last. Wow, the next one tops the last. We had a game like this where it's just like, okay, SJW, dinosaur, anime, woke, garbage. That's really all I can call it. So some of the games are looking exceptional. Some not as much. It does seem that they had kind of a strong focus on a lot of like indie games. We had Oddworld here. Looks good. Never was the biggest Oddworld fan. But anyways, still cool to see like an older franchise show back up. I was hoping for a few more. But like I said, I kind of held restraint because, I mean, this is just kind of the first showing of it. You got to imagine we still got more state of plays coming. Even if a game is slated for 2021, that doesn't mean everything we saw here takes us to 2021. It's not even going to be close. There's going to be... The gaming market is so vast now. There's so many damn games coming out all the time that it's impossible to keep up. And I guess as long as people keep buying it. But I personally think that it's time to start slowing down a little bit so that some more of these other games can kind of get their due time. But when I was a kid, a game could come out and you could wait 3 years to go and buy it from Kmart. It would still be there in the gaming case. So that's just one thing that's different from now to then. Even like a year ago, my local GameStop, they started to get rid of like 90% of their Switch stuff, and now they just have the main stuff that they get. Where at one point, their rack of games that they actually had was monstrous. It had really pretty much some of everything that has come out from launch to now. And now they've done away with a lot of that. And I think it's to sell digitally, which one of my main points going into this presentation, I thought that they were going to show the console, and I thought straight up that it's just not going to have a disk drive. I was waiting for there to just be no disk drive and for the whole world to go, and for me to just go, yeah. So that's kind of what I figured. But regardless, this is going to be the last time that there is a disc tray in it. And I mean, we're going to get the same thing from the Xbox. We already have the Xbox One, all digital edition. But so anyways, I see all this and I'm thinking, it's all looking like cutscenes. Like I said, that's how good it is that the gameplay is becoming discernible from the actual cinematics. Here's another game, Jet. You're getting a lot of this, it's just showing stuff. There's nobody talking. There's no story. There's no dialogue. There's no text. And I'm starting to wonder, sure, some of these games will probably have none of that because that's not really what they're based around. Some of them will probably have very little dialogue, very little text, very little story, with just something so atmospheric that it's like a puzzle. You're slowly finding pieces. Some of them are going to be creepy. Some of them are more like a thriller, horror type game. Other games are more action oriented. Like this, you don't really need a story. But a couple of days ago I was thinking about just like the PS1 and the lack of in-game voices. I remember when Final Fantasy X came out and how it was like all the voices were fully recorded. It kind of made me think like, oh man, I wasn't really hoping, I was pretty much guaranteeing and expecting for it to be just like Final Fantasy 6, 7, 8, 9, to where I was going to just read the text. I mean, that's one of the big things that kind of always like appealed to me, was the fact that it's like reading a book. You're getting this voice for these characters in the way that the story's playing out based on the way that you're reading it. It's just like a book. It's like narrating a movie, whereas if they didn't do it, you would just kind of think these things yourself, but you wouldn't put certain emphasis on certain words. You wouldn't start getting soft with your voice to, drag out emotion and then get super loud with your voice just to prove a point. So I feel like that's one of the things that kind of got lost. And I don't know, I'm feeling like these games can have so much more story than what they do. And sure, plenty of these games will, but in just showing them off for this unveiling here, I felt like they could have presented it a lot more or shown a lot less of just cinematic art. It's basically all like art, concept, like I said, in-game engine slash there is gameplay in there, and then there's also, like I said, the cutscenes, and it's becoming so like hard to distinguish the two that they kind of all just blend together. So you're not really seeing like what's the motive, like who is this actual character here. I mean, how many of these trailers actually went by that you yourself you saw the character, you had some understanding of like what this character was, where it came from, who they were, and like what their motive was, what any sense of what the story was, what any of their, accomplishment was going to be, what any of the mechanics of the game actually were. Say, for instance, that game from Squaresoft, it's 30 seconds of just like this ominous cutscene, and you don't really know anything. You won't know anything until later. I just feel like it kind of sells the game short because the name is already out there. We know it's coming. And yet, I don't even remember the name of it. A few other people, even while watching the thing, after the trailer was over, by the end of the next game, they're like, "Oh, I wanted to see a little bit more of that Squaresoft game," and they didn't even know the name of the title. So they kind of all just get lost in and of themselves, one into the next game. I felt that this presentation kind of lacked a little bit of that. I don't know. What do you think? And I also want to state this before kind of just going on with this trailer. We're watching these on a video on whatever your TV is. I'm sure some people are watching this on a phone going like, oh, this isn't that good, this isn't that big. But there's also, oh, dang fly. You also have to imagine what it's actually going to be like with the system there in front of you, because you really can't convey how good this is actually going to look until the system is actually right there plugged in. It's kind of like trying to show, like a 4K, or back in the day, like an IMAX trailer on your, 540p CRT television in like 2005, trying to show how big the screen is and saying, go watch IMAX at your local IMAX, however far that away is. There's just kind of no way to convey it until it's actually there. It's like, don't underestimate the power of this thing actually being in your home and connected to your TV versus watching, this thing being live streamed off of somebody else's internet who is watching it and recording their reaction and then sending it to you. And I know a lot of people that did that. And as well as, when this thing was going, there was 600,000 people watching it on YouTube on Sony's channel. So, hey, there wasn't much talk here also about frames per second and resolution, 4K, 8K, any of that stuff being native. We're not even near there. We still can't get games that aren't 30 frames per second, and people are talking about going up to 120. We've been trying to lock down 60 since GameCube? They did a few 60 FPS games on like the Super Nintendo. They still can't get 60 frames per second down. So they can't. Some of these games can't even get 30 frames per second locked down. Digital Foundry, I can't wait for the first game that claims it's 120 frames per second, and Digital Foundry gets it, and it's like, that's during like the cutscenes, bro. When you go to the regular gameplay, it's 60 at best. But in most cases, we're looking at it's like 44 frames a second, as long as there's, any type of movement. When there's zero movement, that's when it's at 120. I can't wait for that. So anyways, let's continue. This was a trailer that I kind of missed because I was kind of yapping, but from the makers of Hyper Light Drifter, I know that dude was a single person that made that game. That game was pretty damn good, so I guess this is kind of like a live reaction here. When I saw it from the makers of Hyper Light Drifter, I was like, oh, damn. But like I said, I missed the trailer here, so yeah, this is kind of, I guess, my live reaction. I didn't really miss much of anything else, but like I said, it started to kind of blend into each other. And like I said, I was kind of reserved. I thought that the PS5, would revive a few more older franchises, and I'm hoping that that ends up being true going into the future. No problem. I saw some people saying that, like, I do recall this part. Some people were saying that this thing could run on a PS3, perhaps even a PS2. And I love the people that say, oh, this game looks like a PS2, because I think a lot of people that say, oh, this looks like a PS2, I don't think they've touched a PS2 since 2003. I don't think that they have. I don't think that they've done it, or they've watched too many Metal Jesus PS2 freaking hidden gems, where he's got the best possible HD way of capturing a PS2. If you plug your PS2 from the closet into your TV, whether it's your flat screen, your whatever, and chances are it's going to be from composite video, yellow, white, and red, you're going to go back and look at a PS4 game that looks the worst of PS4 or Xbox One or even Xbox 360. You go and look at the worst game on Xbox 360, say Perfect Dark Zero. That's what it was called, right? I had the game. Perfect Dark. You go and look at that, and you're going to be like, oh, that's right, this is better than the PS2. I forgot how terrible looking the PS2 was. And unfortunately, going into the future, unless these games keep getting remastered, which seems kind of likely, this looks good. It's reminding me Mario Odyssey. You really can't go wrong with a colorful 3D platformer that goes into, like, yes, a tropic land, a dark world, snow, fireland, whether it's Bowser, winter, like I said, snow. You go into your computer and you're seeing like asteroid, like glitchy, Astro's Playroom. I'm guessing that's going to be like a VR game. It doesn't really say there, or maybe it's both. Maybe there's utilization. I mean, I think we're really going to see something with like a PlayStation VR in terms of like the tech and maybe being able to just play the game regularly on your TV and or with your headset on, because now we're starting to see things like the what's it called, where the NES games are now being redone to fit VR so that they're no longer 2D, they're like 3D. I don't know, some of you guys have probably seen that and you know what I'm talking about. The name slips my mind with the well, I guess it's like the emulators called that, but the dude that did it, I mean, it's great work taking 2D Nintendo games and undoing them, taking all the layers, building on them, and making them 3D so that it's a 2D game, but you can kind of see that like Mario and the platforms and the tube and everything is all, in 3 dimensions. So I really think PSVR, it'll probably be a new one. I mean, my guess, maybe they wait on showing something like that for a while and they kind of just keep using the regular, or they kind of stop making games for it for a bit, but you can use the current PlayStation VR on your PS5. I don't see why that wouldn't work, but I haven't actually used it, so I'm not sure of like, I know the wires are the big deal and all the technicality, so I don't know. Then we get 2K21. I mean, sure, it looked about as realistic as I expected it. It's not really my thing. I mean, great graphics. I feel like it's only because of the amount of money that it makes that they spend the amount of time that they do is specifically for basketball. They don't do it as much with, say, like hockey, but they do it as much with, say, soccer. But if there was like a volleyball or a tennis game, they don't ripple every single muscle in vain because they're not making that amount of money. So I would love to see like a 2K like action game where they're using that tech in that motion capture in the yada yada for something that's just not basketball. I really wish that they would do that, because we always see these games, the racing, the Gran Turismo, the Forza, those games look phenomenal. I can't imagine what the new Forza for like Xbox is going to look like with this next gen coming right around the corner. It's probably might even look better than Gran Turismo with that whole 10 or 12 teraflops versus the 9.7 or 9.3 or hey, whatever. More doesn't mean more unless it's utilized correctly, so that's just my take on it. Demon Souls remake, people flipped out over that. This next one here I wasn't really too thrilled on. This shooter here, it kind of, so I don't know, this game, it gave me a feel of like, what is it, The Darkness that was on Xbox 360 / like I said, like some kind of like Borderland vibes, but mostly like that BioShock thing. It had the rewind, not really too much my thing. But again, I wasn't judging this too hard. We had RE8 here, which looked cool when it showed the guy with the shotgun. I mean, that looks, it all looks really good. There's no denying that. And really how good it's going to look actually on your screen, like that horse there, the goat, the guy with the blood on his face, like these close-up shots. I mean, these women in the dresses, like the mirrors and stuff. I mean, really, this game, I gotta say, yeah, it's looking phenomenal. And to anybody that says, it could look that good on a PS4, I'd just say wait to reserve judgment until you see more commercials, a little bit more gameplay as the system actually comes out, once people start talking about it, once, Digital Foundry comes out and talks about their analysis with it. Because there's no doubt that it's next gen. Some games won't be. And I think a lot of the misconstruing here is that there were a lot of like less AAA hardcore games. Like there definitely was more of an emphasis on some of like these smaller titles. A lot of them are new. A lot of them don't have any reputation. They're not really sequels or prequels. I mean, you had, Jak and Daxter, Gran Turismo, of course, but then you had all these other like new names, like the that one from Square, Project of Athia. I think that's what it was called. Yeah, this one here, people were like, is this Dead Space? Is this what? Is this Death Stranding? Because you started seeing like the black, like the strand, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, damn, it looks pretty, coming 2022. That might be a game that gets canceled. I mean, we're not even at the end of 2020 yet, so who's to say that's not even another year out or doesn't just get canceled. But people were predicting Horizon 2, and this is Horizon 2. The I forget the little subtitle there. I have not played Horizon Zero Dawn, and that's probably a game that I should. I believe it's on the PC, so maybe that's something that I should check out here soon. Phenomenal, though. You could just tell what kind of game it is. And a lot of people equated it to like, This is an adventure, you know, equal to and actually more grand than like, you know, Tomb Raider and like Breath of the Wild combined. And it really looks like that. I mean, you're out in the wild here. This is something that my girl would probably like to play. Cause I like the dinosaurs stuff, like pterodactyls flying around. But we started getting here, and I started thinking this odd shape. Maybe it was going to be, you know, almost at one point this tower here. I started thinking that it almost looked like the Series X, but you could see like the X's coming in and out of it, and I knew that it was building up to like them showing the console. But then we got to here, and I started thinking for a second, and it's kind of hard to tell on purpose, did they do that cube-shaped tower thing to make you, you know, just by seeing it, think that it sort of looks like a Series X? And then when they kind of showed those blue lights there, I started thinking maybe this thing is going to kind of look like the dev kit. And everyone went crazy when they saw this. It really, I mean, it's almost like the panels themselves are in the shape of like a PS4, like up the top, they're kind of rounded, they're, you know, smoothed out. If the rest of this thing wasn't rounded in the middle with the lights and the vents coming out, and it was just flush to the outsides, I would say, yeah, kind of looks like almost any other system. But then you also have that PS3 kind of curve to it. You know, the PS3, the one with the sliding top door. And sure, it's fatter on bottom. It's got a stand. It doesn't seem like it's going to sit on its side. Maybe there's like a stand that you can buy for it to sit it on its side. You know, futuristic looking, but I dig that they didn't go with like a smooth plastic they're showing here. It's got the textures. You got, you know, they fin out. I mean, yeah, it looks futuristic. It's leaving room for plenty of airway, which I guess is probably the biggest thing. And then, of course, they showed the one with no disc tray, and I was waiting for that pretty much the whole time. I mean, the one with the disc tray, I'm sure they tried everything they could to come up with two designs that looked halfway decent and complemented each other versus doing, I guess, what people potentially think like Xbox is doing, where, you know, a year ago they were talking about one basically just being a PC tower and then the other one being just this little, you know, digital box with no disc tray. You just plug your internet, your HDMI, and you're good to go. But no, they came up with a cool design. And I like here that they showed the headset with the 3D audio. You got your media remote, your controller. It's got a webcam. So I really think it's not going to be so much just the system itself, but like, I really think this is just another great step, and it's hopefully going to be just like more than what we could imagine, especially for creators, in terms of putting your webcam on, having your headset, being able to do the audio, hooking it up to your PC, being able to stream, having, like I said, your remote. Hopefully you have like volume controls, and basically if you're a streamer, you can just do everything super seamless, from turning down, say you're playing like Call of Duty, NBA 2K21, you can just turn down your teammates' voices right there on the fly while still being able to hear them, getting like the 3D audio, having that go to like your capture card. And I guess, well, at this point, you don't even need a capture card. This thing probably bypasses that and then just goes straight to Twitch. I mean, I really think that's going to be the huge focus on this thing, where something like Stadia kind of failed. I mean, sure, that Stadia really isn't even a console at this point. It's the tech with a failed like product attached to it, where that the tech behind it is going to go on and pretty much live forever as the, you know, building ground of it. And that's what Stadia is. But I don't know. I just think that they kind of failed with that. And Xbox, I think, has a huge chance to come up and kind of do the same thing. But after seeing this, I'm convinced that Sony, once again, I mean, they blow Nintendo out of the water. Nintendo's not trying to do online. They're not trying to have you share anything. I'm surprised that the Nintendo Switch, that you can even post your own words to like Twitter with a screenshot, or even a video to, you know, Twitch, or not Twitch, sorry, to Twitter and or Facebook, nothing else. But this right here, I think this is going to be like the greatest to date system for any type of streamer, you know, between that the controller and the headset with the media remote and the webcam. I really think that hopefully their UI for the system itself is just like leaps and bounds better than anything that they've done so far. Because that's one of the things that I got to say between all three of the big three console manufacturers. I mean, I go onto the Xbox One right now. I cannot stand turning the thing on just to get to the game or to say add like an Xbox card to it or go to the store. It's just absolutely atrocious, and I've hated it from the second that thing came into my house. You have like your trending streamers page, and it's not done well. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm hoping here with the PlayStation that they just do it nice and seamless, because this really does seem like it's going to be a content creator, an influencer's, basically thing of dreams. Like I said, I mean, you got the headset, you got your microphone, it's built into your controller, just using your own voice, being able to stream straight to Twitch or maybe even YouTube. Who knows, maybe it's time for like a new PlayStation streaming, Twitch thing built just straight into the system, where it's its own Sony thing that can, integrate with pretty much anything else, maybe even multi-streaming straight to Twitch and YouTube and to Twitter and to like Facebook, like all at the same time, throwing your feed out. Because you have now where if you're doing like a live stream and it's on like YouTube, you can post it to Twitter and they're pretty much watching it live through Twitter. So maybe there's something seamless like this kind of going all the way through. But yeah, I think I hit on everything that I really wanted to hit on. I know this video was extremely long. Like I said, I wish that there was some more revived franchises. I kept an open mind. This is just a launch. And imagine in 3 years from now, right in the middle of the console, when this thing is being utilized to its fullest potential. I think PlayStation, I love gaming. And gamers are hilarious. And I don't think a lot of the people that are in the gaming community, which there's so many gamers that aren't gamers, that they are gamers. I mean, they give a bad name and a bad rep, and they open their mouth and they say things. And, it really just makes me think that they don't deserve jack shit based on going through, like I said, all these different channels, watching Sony's, watching like 15, 20 different other ones. I was, scrolling through, seeing what the chat says. Everyone's like, ew, gross, ew, yuck. Come on, get on to the next game. This isn't that big of a leap. Oh, this looks like the PS4. This is junk. Where, 2 weeks ago, they're like, oh, we want to see the system. We want to see the games. We want to know what's up. Sony did the perfect thing of staying silent. Xbox showed a little bit. They showed their tower, and we haven't seen anything since. People were getting all worried. One day, the PS5 might be delayed. 2 days later, the PS5 has a new rumor. Over the weekend, the PS5 is going to be $800. Then on Monday, the PS5 might actually be like $299. And then it's, we can't have a $599 system like 12 years ago. Why can't we have that? People are already spending that on PC, and you're saying that basically, even if it is that, you're going to buy it day one. And that's what people are going to do. So they stayed silent for long enough. Xbox showed some of what they got and hasn't been too crazy now. And PlayStation came out. They showed plenty of games. Number one, they showed plenty of gameplay. They showed that it actually is the next gen. You can clearly see with these games. I mean, I've watched enough trailers and live streams and all sorts of stuff from PS4 that even Ghost of Tsushima that's coming out, and Final Fantasy VII Remake and Death Stranding, those are all relevant, top tier, pretty much brand new. As far as maybe if there was 2 or 3 more years on the PS4 Pro, you could look back at those games and say, okay, those were pretty damn good for their time, but now you can actually tell that they're using the full girth of this system. But we won't know that because, we're pretty much going into the next gen now. So all we have to do is base this off of the current games that have just recently come out, which is like Death Stranding. That game was looking absolutely phenomenal. Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. Those were looking, I guess, as good as those systems could push it. So you can actually see here that this is the next gen. PlayStation did it, like I said. So they stayed quiet. They showed enough new games, a few older franchises, a lot of newer stuff, less big budget AAA tier, more type of indie, other studio, other types of games. I mean, we saw, racing. We didn't have a fighting game, but we had racing, we had big adventure, we had space, we had basketball, not much other sports. And I guess that kind of breaks from the tradition of like the old school type of launch where it was like you'd get your basketball game and you'd probably get like your football game. Although sports games, I mean, let's face it, in the past 15, 20 years, that landscape has changed dramatically where now there only 2K reigns, 2K and Madden. That's it for sports games. You're not going to find a double A studio making like a NFL or, just unknown football team and player blitz type game, even though I wish that they would do that. No, instead we get like Mutant Football League, which I'm fine with. But how about some other more arcadey type of sports games? Anyways, you'd get your soccer and your football and your this, and you'd get your racing, but now times are different, so we don't have the traditional launch type of lineup. But this is just some of the stuff. There's going to be more coming out, and there's going to be more cleared. So, I mean, they did a good job for the whole coronavirus, being silent for a bit, working from home, shooting all this stuff kind of individually, not doing too much talking to each other, but just presenting it nice and clean. Sure, it kind of dragged on for a little bit, but it was all new stuff. So they kind of did take that old Nintendo type of playbook, and I thought it was pretty good. And I guess I'm thinking it's better now after kind of like combing through it again than I initially did, because right after it ended kind of the first time, I was like, all right, the system looks cool. It's got this futuristic look. Everyone's going ape shit over it, and it's like, it's just the system. Once you actually see it and you just kind of, even before it comes out, people are going to be like, okay, I can imagine what it is. I thought it was going to be, different. I mean, just look at the controller. The controller was a big indication of like what the system was going to look like. It's always been, well, PS1, gray controller, gray system, but PS2, PS3, PS4, it's a black system, black controller, black system, black controller, black system, black controller. You get the Spider-Man one, black and red system, black and red controller. So, I don't know. I thought they did pretty good. Now I guess it's time to see what's in Xbox's hand, which I feel like history repeats itself. They're going to have a lot of stuff that gets revived. They're going to have a lot of stuff, hopefully, that comes back and makes a return and really like stirs up the industry. I mean, we really need that. But, here's one of the other bigger points. Let me finish, then I'll go back to the other one. Hopefully Xbox can come in and kind of stir up the pot, because, another 5-6 years of this where they kind of just trail and their brand new games are almost worthless in terms of monetary. They go on to Game Pass for $1, and in 3 days no one cares about the brand new Gears of War game, which should still be a $60 game 4 months after it comes out, not have it be like, oh, hey, you want to buy my Gears of War 10 or you want to buy my Gears of War 6? I've only had the game for 3 weeks, and I paid $60. I'll give it to you for $20, and you're like, $20? That ain't even worth it because it's on Game Pass for $1. I think Xbox kind of hurt themselves there, and maybe they should switch up the amount of value and the pricing for Game Pass, and maybe that is something that they do. But hopefully Xbox can, kind of make a big comeback, but I don't really see it. I mean, they're 20 years in, and we've barely seen anything from Halo Infinite, and people have already, after not seeing it for long enough, people are already thinking like, yeah, it's going to be, I guess, the new Halo, or they're probably having problems with it. I've heard some rumblings. Maybe it's going to get pushed back. So, I mean, after 20 years, you should have more than like Halo and Gears of War and Crackdown 3. I mean, seriously? You don't have... Think about Nintendo, or think about Sony. I mean, PlayStation's only been around for 6 more years than Xbox, 7 more years than Xbox. And how many more franchises that are big AAA mainstays do they have versus Xbox? I mean, Xbox doesn't... I mean, look at Nintendo, like 8 years in. 8 years into making consoles. I mean, they already had Donkey Kong and Mario and Yoshi and Wario and and Metroid and Kirby and all the characters from Smash Brothers. Minus a couple, but I mean, damn. So I think it's time for Xbox to step it up. And the final thing that I wanted to say in this video before going, which, like I said, very long rant, and apologies for that. If you're new to DW, subscribe. But I was thinking about this just the other day, and I was thinking about, is it possible that the PS5 reveal event, it just doesn't have a disc tray? Because you have the Switch, and the Switch is great. Having games physically on it is great if they're not also a digital download, because you wouldn't buy a Blu-ray at Walmart where you open it up, it gives you a DVD, and then it says put the disc into your player, and then the disc will be read. It will be used as a verification disc code, and then the other 90% of the game will be streamed from your device, to which you still need the internet for. So you see what I'm getting at? I mean, the Switch is a great moment for right now, and I'm thinking that, I mean, Nintendo with their first party games, and with the size that they are, a game like Super Smash Brothers or Zelda Breath of the Wild, or, you know, Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, Torna, any of those. I mean, they're all like less than 12 gigs. Super Smash Brothers Ultimate combined is like 13 gigs. It's under 16 gigs. They could go on like that for probably 5, 6, 8 more years, compressing the games the way that they do. They got some magic that they're not letting anybody else in. But if people want the continued success of the Nintendo Switch like it is now, I mean, if there was going to be a Switch 2, unless these, 64 gig cartridges or 80 something gig, whatever next size goes up, unless those things can come down in price to where we're not being Switch taxed, I mean, a Switch 2 is almost unlikely in its current form with the cartridges. And I mean, I commend Nintendo. Sure, we've all had to pay quite a bit when you actually tally it all up for the Switch tax. And I guess it pays for those cartridges. Some people say those cartridges are dirt cheap, and others say, oh, they're really expensive. And I think it's somewhere in the middle, to where, I mean, if your profit margins are this much on, as a third-party developer, this much on PlayStation, this much on Xbox, and just a little bit less on Nintendo, I mean, why wouldn't you put your 8 gigabyte game on a 2 gigabyte card and make people that actually want it physical when they could just get it digital? Why not force them to download 6 gigs of it and not have a complete game on the shelf that still you have to put in and requires internet? So I'm going to end this video here. That's going to be another discussion for another time, but I'm really curious to see the way that this is going to come out, the way that Xbox is going to come out, the way that those are going to, connect, and then the way that the Wii U ended and Nintendo basically took a fall and then restarted kind of mid-generation, and what the future that's going to be. So if you want to hear that discussion, you want to hear my thoughts on it, follow me on Twitter. That'll be down below. If you're new to DW, thank you for watching this very long, very drawn out discussion and review. Hopefully I brought up a lot of good points. Hopefully it made sense. And if you did make it this long, I just want to say thank you. So if you're new, subscribe. There's more content like this coming. Hit the like button. I always appreciate it. I know you won't. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Why do I ask? Because I know you're not going to do it. Anyways, this is DW saying thanks for watching. Peace out.